I'm actually pro nuclear as well. Like, I think nuclear has a bad rap, and it's people really shouldn't be shutting down nuclear power stations, in my view. Unless they're in like a location that's prone to natural disasters.
Between now and then, we need to maintain nuclear. I can't emphasize enough, please do not shut down the nuclear power plants.
Nuclear generation accounts for 8.9% of the energy we use. It recently slipped to third place, following renewables, and within a few decades it will supplant fossil fuels as our primary source of energy. Analysts predict that with the rapid development of nuclear energy technology, within a few decades the price of this type of energy will be cheaper and even supersede fossil fuels and renewable energy, including solar and wind, becoming the US primary source of energy in general and Texas in particular. So what makes nuclear power likely to dominate the energy market in the future? Let's find out in today's episode of Tesla Car World. By the way, welcome back to our channel. Please show your support by subscribing and ringing the bell so you won't miss any of our interesting videos in the future. Now, let's get started on today's content. According to the US Department of Energy, nuclear energy has by far the highest capacity factor of any other energy source. This basically means nuclear power plants are producing maximum power more than 92% of the time during the year. That's about nearly 2 times more than natural gas and coal units, and almost 3 times or more reliable than wind and solar plants. A nuclear power plant can operate 24 hours a day, and hence it produces more total annual energy and requires less maintenance. On the contrary, renewable energy plants are considered intermittent or variable sources and can be interrupted by a lack of fuel, for example, wind and sun. We currently rely on uranium to fuel the nuclear reaction processes in nuclear power plants, but over the next decade or two, we'll follow India's lead and work toward thorium-based reactor systems. These systems, which utilize thorium and fluoride salts, are more expensive to build, but the advantages of thorium reactors are significant. Thorium reactors have efficiency levels as high as 98% compared to 5% for current uranium-based technologies, placing them well above fossil fuel and renewable energy. The same analysis points out that thorium produces twice as much energy as uranium fission processes. On the other hand, renewable energy sources such as wind and solar are also being widely used by Americans in general, and particularly in Texas. Solar energy accounts for 46% of all new electricity generating capacity expected to join the grid in 2022, which comes out to be about 21.5 gigawatts. However, there is a big downside to solar energy, which is the cost. Solar panels cost between $4,000 to $35,000, depending on the type and model. Additionally, the installation cost of other solar products such as solar roofs is still high. For example, the average cost of a Tesla solar roof for a house is around $55,000, excluding additional costs. Therefore, with such cost levels, now it's difficult for low-income families in the US to fully access solar power electricity. Meanwhile, nuclear energy can overcome this drawback. Accordingly, those who are using a solar power system will have to pay for the installation and maintenance of the accompanying products. But businesses and people using nuclear power only have to pay the cost of using the electricity grid. Next, the cost of using nuclear power is also quite cheap. According to some sources, people only have to spend around $2 per watt of nuclear power, while the customers will pay about $2.21 per watt for Tesla solar panels before the federal solar tax credit. But the price can vary depending on where they live. There are even places where people have to pay up to $2.51 per watt for Tesla's solar panels. Liquid fluoride thorium reactors partly help to optimize the cost of nuclear power. The fuel cost is significantly lower than a solid fuel reactor. The salts cost roughly $150 per kilogram, and thorium costs about $30 per kilogram. According to analysts, the cost of nuclear power will also be further reduced thanks to the abundant reserves of thorium. Thorium reserves are very large. It's 3 to 4 times more abundant than uranium in the Earth's crust and widely distributed in nature as an easily exploitable resource in many countries. Experts estimate that there is enough thorium in the United States alone to power the country at its current energy level for over 1,000 years. According to the data from the United States Geological Survey and the International Atomic Energy Agency, the largest thorium reserves in the world are found in India, which has around 25% of the world's reserves. Currently estimated at 519,000 tons, Australia has 489,000 tons, which represents 19% of the world reserves. The United States has the third largest in the world, which is estimated to be about 400,000 tons or 13% of the world's reserves. Nevertheless, nuclear energy still has a few drawbacks. One of the most serious problems with nuclear power today is safety. The power reactors in a nuclear power plant are making plutonium, and the element is highly toxic. If not properly handled, it can cause extreme radiation-based diseases. In fact, nuclear accidents and after effects are not very rare. Any sort of leakage can lead to complicated life-threatening diseases for the population living nearby. The most realistic examples are the Chernobyl and Fukushima nuclear disasters that happened. Aside from that, nuclear energy is neither green energy nor renewable. The reason why nuclear energy is not green is that it involves radioactive materials and wastes. The availability of uranium for nuclear reaction is also limited. Uranium is also only available in a few countries, and their deposits will eventually run out like fossil fuels. Even so, there is still a solution that will ease your mind about the safety of nuclear energy. Thorium is a low radioactive metallic chemical element, hence thorium-fueled reactors offer a potentially safer, cleaner, and more affordable alternative to traditional reactors fueled with highly radioactive elements. Moreover, thorium is much safer compared to uranium. According to experts, thorium only emits alpha radiation, which is weak enough that it can't penetrate human skin. On top of that, thorium also can be applied in other fields. In the past, Tesla's CEO Elon Musk has shared that thorium will be a very potential material for nuclear batteries. Indeed, scientists have taken advantage of thorium to develop a new nuclear battery with an extremely long lifespan. We're talking a new nuclear battery that uses nuclear waste and lasts up to 35,000 years. Currently, the average life of the electric vehicle battery is anywhere between 10 to 20 years. In any case, the power of the nuclear battery comes from radioactive isotopes used in nuclear reactors, which can be produced from thorium's radioactive isotopes. The battery can be used to power devices and machines of any size, from aircraft and rockets to electric vehicles and smartphones. With the increase in demand for electricity and the negative impact of fossil fuels on the environment, the need for alternative energy sources has become more pressing than ever. Solar energy is a promising option, but traditional solar cells have limitations. However, a new type of solar cell has recently been developed, and it has the potential to revolutionize the industry. This new solar cell can combine with hydrogen, which is one of the most abundant elements in the universe. This combination results in high economic efficiency and a breakthrough technology that could change the game for renewable energy. So what went into the development of this new technology, and how can its potential change the clean energy industry for the future? KU Leuven researchers in Belgium have created a hydrogen panel that directly converts water vapor from the air into hydrogen gas with the help of sunlight. They claim it produces 250 liters of hydrogen per day at an efficiency of 15%. They are developing it under the Soul Heat project, which is now in a transition phase from research to spin-off. Hydrogen gas is a gas that does not release greenhouse gases or toxic substances when you use it. The condition is that you make hydrogen with clean energy, and that is exactly what bioengineers Jan Ronget and Tom Bosseret of KU Leuven do. Since 2011, they have been working on a hydrogen panel that converts moisture in the air directly into hydrogen. Ronget said, "Hydrogen gas will be important as an energy solution of the future. It can be used for many applications. We think the first place of heavy transport, industry, and emergency power generators. With cogeneration, you can also generate electricity and heat with it." So how does it work exactly? The panel captures two things, air and light. Air contains water vapor, and the hydrogen panel uses the sun's energy, or light, to split those water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen is stored under pressure with a compressor or transported via pipelines and can then be used in all sorts of applications. The oxygen gas, on the other hand, is simply released back into the air without impact on the environment. So how much is that going to run us? By 2030, the researchers want to bring their hydrogen panel to the market. The question that cannot be avoided is, how much will such an installation cost? Like any innovative technology, our hydrogen panels will first have higher costs, according to what we read on the Soul Heat Project website. With photovoltaic solar panels, however, the cost price has halved in the last 5 years. For hydrogen panels, we foresee a similar evolution. Ultimately, we expect that the cost of a hydrogen panel will be close to a solar panel today. We get a return of up to 15%, which means that 15% of the solar energy that the panel receives is converted into chemical energy stored in hydrogen gas, explains Professor Martins. Flux 50 played a role in the further development of the hydrogen panel by supporting the first demonstration in a home and interdisciplinary cooperative research project, ROLEX, spelled ROLECS. A panel of 1.6 meters by 1 meter was placed to produce hydrogen gas during the summer. That fuel can then be used for heating and electricity production in the winter. The house also has solar panels to generate electricity and a solar water heater to produce hot water. The three techniques together should be sufficient on paper to provide sufficient energy all year round. Flux 50 alongside Catalysti also follows the further steps towards industrialization in the later stage innovation project Hyper, in the context of the innovative program Moonshot. The Hyper project aims to create a pilot line and living lab that supports the design, upscaling of production, and the integration of innovative hydrogen panels. Both projects are financially supported by Valeo, or VLAIO. So what are the advantages of hydrogen gas as a renewable source of energy? Hydrogen gas is easy to store during the summer, allowing you to use it during the following winter. You could store the hydrogen gas in a pressure vessel, for instance. When there's overproduction, you could also put the surplus gas on the natural gas network, which is similar to what we're already doing with traditional solar panels when the electricity network produces too much electricity. This approach would require some changes to the gas network, but nothing excessive. You could even mix natural gas and hydrogen gas in the existing network for a gradual transition to pure hydrogen gas. Now, what makes the hydrogen panel so special? Tom Bosseret said, "Our system converts sunlight and water vapor from the air directly into hydrogen gas with an efficiency of 15%. That's more efficient than the traditional ways of producing hydrogen gas. In Belgian weather conditions, our panel can produce an average of 250 liters per day on an annual basis. To give you an idea, 20 of these panels could heat and supply electricity for a well-insulated house with a heat pump all winter long. If you also install a solar thermal collector and traditional solar panels, you have enough to get through the year." Our starting point was simple: how can we produce fuel anytime and anywhere? That question led us straight to the most logical answer: air, and especially the moisture it contains. Even desert air has enough water vapor in it, so you can apply this process anywhere. Water vapor is the fourth gas in the air after oxygen, nitrogen, and argon. So if you find a way to catch that, you have more than enough water to split, he explained. Could hydrogen panels find their way to our roofs by 2030? According to Ron J. and Bosseret, hydrogen is the energy solution of the future. Within KU Leuven, under the name the Soul Heat Project, they were given the opportunity to test their ideas. They have already developed several prototypes of the hydrogen panel, and thanks to support from the Leuven company Comate, they were even able to translate these prototypes into a marketable product. Sander van Dendries, director of Comate, said, "We are very satisfied that we can turn a research result like this into a marketable product, but you can only really speak of an innovation if it is produced, sold, and used. To make this possible, the Soul Heat Research Project will become a spin-off company of KU Leuven." In this way, we can eventually make the panels in large volumes and distribute them around the world, says Jan Ronje. He is already looking forward to the future. We expect that from 2030, it will be possible to install hydrogen panels on the roofs of homes. How do you feel about this unique hydrogen-based solar cell? Do you believe it'll become the device that powers your home? Have I been...
Now that's all solar. If you look carefully, you can see the solar cells. So that house is also solar.
The solar race is on in a fierce way to rapidly boost the renewable energy industry. Recently, Elon Musk revealed an incredible power cell never seen before. This innovative technology costing less and providing an endless flow of energy. As you know, the standard silicon photovoltaic solar cell is the black and copper solar panel that you can find on suburban rooftops and solar farms that were born and raised in America in 1950. Currently, 90% of the world's solar panels are made from crystalline silicon, and the industry continues to grow at a rate of about 30% per year. Now, what have we told you about a material that is lighter and simpler to manufacture at a lower cost? It's an inexpensive solution that can make an efficient cell. These photovoltaic cells thin enough to power a house are called ferroelectric crystal cells. Strong demand coupled with production glitches has pushed the price of key materials, mainly polysilicon, for solar panels to the highest level. The cost of the most expensive grade of polysilicon rose to $40.62 per kilogram, surpassing last year's high of $40.34. Polysilicon makers take the 99% pure silicon metal and remove impurities until it is 99.9999% pure. As the silicon rods are forming at the center of the reactor walls need to be kept cool to prevent the silicon from crystallizing there. Maintaining that temperature difference is really energy intensive, prompting Tesla to find an alternative to silicon. The energy generation of ferroelectric crystals in solar cells can be increased by a factor of 1,000 thanks to a new innovation involving the arrangement of thin layers of the materials. Ferroelectric crystals differ from conventional silicon cells in that they do not require a p-n junction to create the PV effect. In other words, there is no need to create positively and negatively doped layers within the cell. The researchers said that change could make solar panels easier to produce. Raw materials for the production of this new cell do not need to be mined from the earth. It is any material with a crystalline structure, so researchers use ferroelectrics like barium titanate, a mixed oxide made of barium and titanium. This significantly reduces costs. Tesla does not need to invest a lot of money in professional workers or high-tech machinery to support the production. Therefore, it's estimated that these panels can cost up to 10 times less per watt than modern commercial silicon solar panels. You can expect to pay about $2.21 per watt for Tesla's solar panels before the federal solar tax credit, but this ferroelectric panel only costs 22 cents per watt. Previously, you always had to worry about the price of silicon solar panels, while this new Tesla innovation is a great solution for those who can't afford to buy them. But then one has to wonder, how much energy can it actually produce since the price is so low? The US installed 3.9 gigawatts of solar PV capacity in the first quarter of 2022 to reach 126.1 gigawatts direct current of total installed capacity, enough to power 22 million American homes. Solar accounted for 50% of all new electricity generating capacity added in the US in the first quarter. Elon Musk said, Tesla's new cell will change the game because it can generate more energy than ever. To achieve this increase in electrical energy production, the researchers created crystalline layers of barium titanate, strontium titanate, and calcium titanate, which they placed alternatively on top of one another, separating the positive and negative charges in the same photovoltaic device. This arrangement could greatly increase the efficiency of solar panels. However, pure barium titanate, a ferroelectric crystal, does not absorb much sunlight and consequently generates a comparatively low photocurrent. The researchers discovered that combining extremely thin layers of different materials significantly increases the solar energy yield by experimenting with different material combinations. This was achieved by vaporizing the crystals with a high-power laser and redepositing them on carrier substrates. This produced a material made of 500 layers that are about 200 nanometers thick. In comparison with pure barium titanate, the new photoelectric material irradiated with laser light had a current flow 1,000 times stronger and more efficient, even with a reduction in the proportion of the base element of the mixture by almost 2/3. The interaction between the lattice layers appears to lead to a much higher permittivity. In other words, the electrons are able to flow much more easily due to the excitation by the light photons. The measurements also showed that this effect is very robust. It remained nearly constant over a 6-month period. A large Tesla solar system of 11.34 kilowatts can produce an average of 43 to 58 kilowatt hours per day, equivalent to 1,500 kilowatt hours per week. With the ferroelectric cell, don't be surprised when we say that it can produce 1.5 million kilowatt hours per week. The ferroelectric cell development plan is a big step forward for Tesla as well as the renewable energy market. In the future, this cell is predicted to fulfill Elon Musk's ambition to provide electricity for the entire United States.
I'm extremely confident that solar will be at least a plurality of power and most likely a majority. And I predict it will be a plurality in less than 20 years.
A future with more solar energy could open the door to many different use cases. You can integrate those panels into public transport on the road, in your Model Y, and imagine buildings covered with transparent windows that generate electricity. How exciting! So what are the challenges for ferroelectric solar cells? A common problem with thin films is that high temperatures shorten lifespan. For the Western states, silicon crystal holds the best position so far. Tesla is working on creating a thin film that can withstand extreme temperatures. Their work promises to be part of a potential revolution in ferroelectric materials, with possible applications in computer memory, capacitors, and other electronic devices. A silicon solar panel can last for 25 years. On the other hand, this ferroelectric cell is relatively new and needs time to be studied in the lab. U.S. President Biden has launched a series of initiatives to spur domestic solar PV manufacturing with $56 million in new funding.
You can access production at larger scales, which is one of the bottlenecks to entry into an application space like energy storage, where you need to deliver very large systems. I think that would be probably the most exciting first application for TPVs.
One new solution by researchers at MIT, called thermo-photovoltaics, will blow your mind. What breakthrough advantages will it have, and can it provide the energy storage solution we've been looking for? More than 90% of the world's electricity comes from sources of heat such as coal, natural gas, nuclear energy, and concentrated solar energy. For a century, steam turbines have been the industry standard for converting such heat sources into electricity. On average, steam turbines reliably convert about 35% of a heat source into electricity, with about 60% representing the highest efficiency of any heat engine to date. But the machinery depends on moving parts that are temperature limited. Heat sources higher than 2000 degrees Celsius would be too hot for turbines. In recent years, scientists have looked into solid-state alternatives that could potentially work efficiently at higher temperatures. Engineers at MIT, or Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or the NREL, have designed a heat engine with no moving parts. Their new demonstrations show that it converts heat to electricity with over 40% efficiency. It's a very competitive level of performance compared to the most efficient type of energy available today, which is nuclear power at 45% efficiency. The heat engine is a thermo-photovoltaic, or TPV cell, similar to a solar panel's photovoltaic cells, that passively captures high-energy photons from a white-hot heat source and converts them into electricity. The cell is fabricated from three main regions: a high bandgap alloy, which sits over a slightly lower bandgap alloy, and underneath, which is a mirror-like layer of gold. The first layer captures a heat source's highest energy photons and converts them into electricity, while lower energy photons that pass through the first layer are captured by the second and converted to add to the generated voltage. Any photons that pass through this second layer are then reflected by the mirror back to the heat source rather than being absorbed as wasted heat. The team's design can generate electricity from a heat source of between 1900 to 2400 degrees Celsius or up to about 4300 degrees Fahrenheit. According to Professor Henry, the rate at which heat leaks out of the blocks is proportional to their surface area, whereas the amount of energy they can store relates to their volume. They will take months to cool down, making them the perfect medium for storing thermal energy. The average battery energy storage capital costs in 2019 was at $589 per kilowatt hour. After considerable research, Henry and his team estimate that this system could store energy at a fraction of the cost at around $10 per kilowatt hour of capacity, while nuclear power is 1,300 times more expensive. Capital costs for nuclear power plants range between $7,800 to $12,800 per kilowatt. Does the cheaper price make up for the lower efficiency? Well, let's talk a little bit about how much power that would make. These cells could reach that 40% efficiency mark, so a 1 square meter cell could generate around 100 kilowatts. For comparison, the power per area of nuclear power facilities is also about 100 kilowatts per square meter. So an array of 30 by 30 modules, about 900 square feet, will have a total capacity of around 90,000 kilowatts or close to 100 megawatts. The graphite blocks can hold enough heat to keep the cells generating power for roughly 10 hours. 100 megawatts per hour for 10 hours means it could provide 1,000 megawatt hours or 1 gigawatt, enough to power tens of thousands of homes. Moreover, TPV cells can deliver energy instantly, the same way traditional solar cells would. This would make them ideal for grid-scale applications. In a grid-scale thermal battery, the system would absorb excess energy from renewable sources like the sun and store it in heavily insulated banks of hot graphite. When needed, the TPV cells could then convert that heat to electricity and send it to the power grid. The experimental cell was just a square centimeter, so the team would have to ramp that up to about 10,000 square feet for grid-level power. Meanwhile, a nuclear energy facility has a small area footprint, requiring about 1.3 square miles per 1,000 megawatts of installed capacity. TPVs take little space to implement, but they are as efficient as nuclear power. As of right now, a company plans to roll out a 1 megawatt hour pilot system by the end of 2022, with plans to eventually implement a 50 megawatt hour commercial scale system by 2026. They also hope to further improve the cell's efficiency to 50% by increasing the fraction of unusable radiation they reflect by 97 to 98%. Thus, we could start seeing TPV systems co-located at power plants or smelters to improve efficiency and absorb some of that lost heat. Indeed, the opportunities abound. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we need to see how this pilot plant performs. Now, all of this sounds super promising, but there are still lots of challenges that TPV needs to solve. Moving heat requires very advanced, complex pumps and systems to cope with all that heat. Moreover, the system is very expensive to invest in and is still under development in the lab. Plus, blasting TPV cells with such intense heat and light is another new challenge engineers haven't faced before. The main problem with molten tin is that if something goes wrong and the heat drops below the melting point, all of the tin solidifies, so the system cannot ever be allowed to cool down, even with sufficient cooling to keep the panels from overheating. When it comes to nuclear power, uranium extraction, transporting, and processing all produce emissions. The long and complex construction process of nuclear power plants also releases CO2, or carbon dioxide, as does the demolition of decommissioned sites. Moreover, if a nuclear power plant accident occurs, or otherwise known as a meltdown, the environment and surrounding people could be exposed to high levels of radiation. The 2011 accident at the nuclear power plant in Fukushima, Japan, is one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. The reactors were destroyed by a tsunami following a major earthquake. How do you feel about this new solution? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Otherwise, that's it for today's episode. We sincerely thank you for watching and for all of your support of our channel, Tesla Car World. As always, if you enjoyed our video, please leave a like, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell to stay up to date on exciting developments in the world of EVs. And be sure to leave a comment down below to tell us what you thought about today's content. Once again, we thank you so much from all of us here. We hope to see you again next time. Until then, take care and be safe.